couple of years ago, I was climbing here in the mountains in Washington State. And I came across a group of teenage boys here at the Tank Lakes, a remote location, miles from any trail. It's pretty common to meet kids from private schools up there in the high country. Private schools take their kids up there for the transformative experience of big wilderness, of facing adversity and overcoming it. So I assumed that that's what this group was, but I was mistaken. It was a group from the YMCA. The Y had created a program to take disadvantaged kids up onto their public lands to see these places and have the same kinds of transformative experiences. I didn't think much more about this experience until a year later, when I learned that the Y and scores of other nonprofit youth service organizations have been effectively excluded from places like this, Azurite Lake in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness area, not too far from Seattle. Private schools, all schools in fact, continue to be welcome. But the poor kids that I met, they can't go there this year. Nonprofit youth service organizations have been excluded. Why has this happened? Well, the Y doesn't have a guide outfitter permit. By law, schools are exempted. They don't need guide outfitter permits. But nonprofit organizations need them. The Y doesn't have one. And most national forests rarely issue them anymore. The Forest Service regulations involved in issuing a new permit are too onerous. They don't have the staffing to do it. So poor kids this summer in 2012 couldn't go to Angeline Lake and learn how to tie hooks onto fishing lines with the YMCA. To me, it seems patently obvious that our public land should be open to all young people in our country. And fortunately, a group of citizens is working hard to change the rule. It includes people like Seattle business leader Doug Walker, shown here on his 62nd birthday, leading a group up into the high country. But my point in telling you this story is actually broader than changing just this one rule. I want to illustrate for you an opportunity that lies hidden in all the adversity that we face. Look, achieving full sustainability, it's a tall order. We need to have big changes in law and public policy. And with politics so bitterly divided, such changes can seem a long way off. But what I want to say to you is there are small changes that we can make now that have a real impact. Think of it this way. On jobs and climate and fairness and biological diversity and toxic chemicals and blah, and blah, and blah, and blah, all the dimensions of sustainability, we know that we need to overhaul the house from the foundation to the roof. But the entire family is fighting over the blueprint for the remodel, and there's no money in the bank account. So maybe we could just take a few minutes away from screaming at each other and go clean out the fridge. You see, among the thousands of rules that govern society, there are some that are just woefully backwards and out of date. Think of these guide outfitter permit rules at the Forest Service. They make common sense, affordable, green solutions against the law. Some of the rules made sense when they were first adopted years ago, but like old food that's gone bad in the back of the fridge, they're way past their sell-by date. So today I want to tell you about 10 examples of rules that we ought to put into the compost heap straight away. And number one is the Forest Service regulation that keeps those kids from going back to the Tank Lakes. And number two is clotheslines. Many communities across North America actually ban clotheslines. In fact, as many as half of homeowner associations, condo and apartment buildings, forbid using the sun to dry clothes. This is a preposterous rule in an age of global climate change and tight family budgets. And fortunately, there's a rebellion working against it. So this is Susan Taylor in Bend, Oregon. She's a nurse. She's been fighting with her homeowner association for years over her clothesline. They have given her warnings, legal citations, fines. She keeps hanging up her clothes. Someone even snuck onto her property in the middle of the night and cut her clotheslines, right? But she's pushing back. She is arguing that Oregon ought to join 6 other U.S. states and 1 Canadian province that have passed right-to-dry laws. Laws that void clothesline bans and guarantee us the freedom to hang out the wash. Susan Taylor is cleaning out the fridge. Third, phone books. In most of the United States, the law requires phone companies to deliver a white pages directory to every landline customer every year. Even if you don't want a phone book, they are legally obligated to give you one. Now, nowadays, with cell phones and the internet, most people don't use phone books. More than 80% of Americans say they'd rather not receive one. Jeanette Henderson, a citizen here in Washington State, and a group of her friends and neighbors have been pushing back against this rule. And things look good that they may be able to change the rules so that you only get a phone book, imagine this, if you ask for one, right? When they succeed, they will join 20 other states and parts of Canada that have changed the rule, that have cleaned out the fridge, at least in parts of those states, so that you only get a phone book if you ask for one. Next, couches. Since 1975, the state of California has had a regulation on the books concerning the flammability of upholstered furniture. The effect of this regulation is to motivate manufacturers to pump couches full of flame-retardant chemicals. There are probably also flame-retardant chemicals in the padding on the chairs that you're sitting on right now for the same reason. California's market is so enormous that manufacturers just make everything to the California standard. Unfortunately, the chemicals don't stay in the couches. They leak out into our living spaces, and we metabolize them. The flame-retardant compounds are rather toxic, and in fact, this regulation is probably the single most important cause of toxic chemicals that end up in our bodies, in our children, and in our pets. Worse, the regulation turns out to have no fire safety benefit whatsoever. 3.5 decades of fire science research shows no discernible improvement as a result of using these chemicals. The flame retardants just don't work in this particular case. Citizens have been pushing back, led by chemist Arlene Blum in California. They have really started to get traction recently, generating some fabulous media attention, and recently, in a huge breakthrough, convincing California Governor Jerry Brown to request from the relevant agency a new rule, one that would provide actual fire safety without toxic chemicals. We have not yet won this war, but we are on the way to cleaning out the fridge. 5, hair braiding. Cleaning the fridge is not just about environmental concerns, it's also about fairness and opportunity. This is Amber Starks. She's a model in Portland, Oregon. She's also a volunteer with foster children. She's a proud promoter of natural African-style hair braiding, and she decided a year ago that she wanted to start a business to braid the hair of African-American girls in foster care. The state of Oregon told her that's illegal. To braid hair, you need a beautician's license. To get a beautician's license, you need 1,700 hours of training, more training than it takes to become a firefighter in the state of Oregon. Most beauty schools in Oregon don't teach African-style hair braiding. Amber Starks, you'll be glad to know, has not taken this news sitting down. She has recruited state legislators, generated media attention with her simple story that you shouldn't need a license to braid hair. Amber Starks is cleaning out the fridge. 6, pickle jars. Local health regulations make it illegal to clean, sanitize, and refill used food containers at grocery stores. But companies like the Good Food Store in Missoula, Montana, have been working to change this regulation to clean out the fridge, or to let all of us to clean out our fridges in this case. 7, car sharing. Personal car sharing is a new business model where people rent out their vehicles during idle hours to each other. Startup companies are rushing into this new industry because there's big potential for profit. There's also big potential for consumers to save money and for all of us to see reductions in driving and emissions. Unfortunately, state insurance regulations in most of the United States and in most Canadian provinces currently make it extremely difficult to do this business. The 3 West Coast states have cleaned their fridges, have changed the insurance rules to allow personal car sharing to get started. The rest of the continent need to clean the fridge. 8, couch surfing. Airbnb is an online marketplace where people are now renting out their spare bedrooms and empty apartments by the night. It's for-profit couch surfing. Brings big economic and environmental benefits, and it's growing explosively. But local hotel taxes and building codes threaten to strangle it in its crib unless we can clean out the fridge. 9, parking. Most cities across the continent mandate that builders of new buildings provide tremendous quantities of off-street parking. And the result of this is that buildings cost more and that people drive more than they otherwise would. The most egregious example is at new bars, new drinking establishments, which are typically required to provide more parking outside, more space outside for cars than they provide space inside for their customers. It is time to clean the fridge. 10, rainwater. Outdated plumbing codes make it too expensive to connect the rain barrels outside our homes to the toilet tanks and washing machines inside our home, so that we could use rainwater rather than treated drinking water for these purposes. It is clearly time to clean the fridge. These examples don't exhaust the list, from food carts to mother-in-law apartments, carpooling for cash to bike sharing programs. Common sense, affordable green solutions are too often illegal. So yes, we know we need to overhaul the whole house, but in the meantime, we do have this golden opportunity to clean out the fridge. We can free grocery stores to refill used pickle jars. And we can free ourselves to connect our rain barrels to our toilets. We can let Amber Starks braid foster kids' hair without spending 2 years in beauty school first. We can unleash the green potential of car sharing and couch surfing and unburden business from parking requirements. We can keep unwanted phone books off of our porches and toxic chemicals out of our couches and our bodies and our children. We can let Susan Taylor and millions of other people hang out the wash and help slow global climate change. And we can liberate the YMCA to take poor kids to places like the Tank Lakes, places that they own just as much as you or I. Thank you.